Hello and welcome to Art Book Nook. My name is Kay and I review art and craft books. I recently reviewed Making Colour Sing by Jeanne Dobie, which is an incredible book full of practical lessons all about mixing vibrant glowing colours with watercolour paint. My review has proved to be very popular, which tells me how much Jeanne's approach and this subject resonates with other artists too. The teaching in Jeanne's book is unlike any other watercolour art book I've reviewed so far, and one idea that really stood out to me personally is the difference between glazing transparent colours or mixing them all together on the palette. I was so blown away by this, I thought I would take that idea and show you exactly what it looks like in practice. So I'll be using the three transparent primaries that Jeanne Dobie works with in her basic watercolour palette: Aureolin Yellow, Rose Madder Genuine and Cobalt Blue. First I'll paint each colour on its own so you can see the true character, and then we'll explore what happens when we glaze them in layers versus mixing them all together from the start. You're in for a surprise. I think you'll be quite impressed. I know I was. So I'm now going to paint a small square of each colour separately so you can see the true colour character. All three are transparent colours. That means they allow light to pass through the paint film and bounce back from the white of the paper. It's this transparency that gives a watercolour its glow, and it's what makes glazing possible. I've placed a tiny dot of the three colours in separate little dishes because I need to ensure these colours don't get contaminated. So just to remind you, I'm working with Aureolin Yellow, Rose Madder Genuine and Cobalt Blue. If you don't have these exact colours, you could always try the experiment on your own, as long as the three primaries you choose are transparent and single pigment versions. The watercolour paper I'm using today is Arches Hot Press. I've chosen hot press because the transparent washes I'll be layering are very delicate, and I thought a smoother surface would help show the subtlety of this technique more clearly on camera. Across the top of the page I've drawn three small squares. These will hold solid swatches of each of the primary colours. In the larger square in the centre of the page, I'll apply an individual glaze of each primary colour, one at a time, allowing each layer to dry thoroughly before adding the next. And finally, in the bottom square, I'll paint a series of three glazes again, but this time all the primaries will be pre-mixed together first, so we can compare the difference between glazing or mixing directly in the palette. So here we have the three small squares painted with our primary colours. I'm sure you don't need to watch me paint those in real time. Now I'm applying a very thin wash of Aureolin Yellow, pigment PY40, to the large square in the centre. This first layer should be the palest of tints, just a whisper of colour. It is really important to let this layer dry completely before applying the next pigment. If the paint is even slightly damp, the colours can start to mix on the paper and become muddy, rather than creating the clean, luminous effect we're aiming for with glazing. Our first layer is now completely dry, so I'm going to apply the second glaze, this time using Rose Madder Genuine. This is quite a strong colour, so I'm making sure the wash is very watery. When you're glazing, the paint should be so diluted that it looks almost transparent. I'll just test it at the side first. Yes, that looks about right. When you're glazing, you should barely be able to see the colour as it goes down. It should feel more like you're tinting the surface rather than painting it. Now I'm going to brush a band of Rose Madder glaze over the yellow square, leaving a little space either side so you can still see the bands of pure colour. As I apply this, I'm being careful not to overwork the surface. If I go back and forth too much, I'll start to reactivate the yellow layer underneath, and that would spoil the clean transparent effect we're looking for. So that's our second glaze complete. Before moving on to the next colour, it's really important to rinse your brush thoroughly and make sure you have fresh clean water. That way the pigments will stay bright and they won't become muddied. Now that the second layer has dried completely, we can move on to the third and final glaze. I'm mixing a very watery wash of Cobalt Blue, pigment PB28. I'll test it first. Yes, that looks faint enough, just a soft tint of blue. Now I'm going to paint a vertical band of this Cobalt Blue glaze right over the top of the Aureolin square and the horizontal rose madder band. And just as before, we'll need to let this layer dry completely before moving on. Patience is key with glazing. It's what allows each transparent layer to shine through clearly without disturbing the one beneath it. I have a clean dish here, and now I'm going to mix all three of the primary washes together, the Aureolin Yellow, the Rose Madder and the Cobalt Blue. As you can see, when these three transparent primaries are combined, we end up with a sort of greyish brown colour. It's quite neutral, and that's because the three primaries are effectively balancing one another out on the colour wheel. With this neutral wash, I'm now going to paint three delicate layers in the large square at the bottom of the page, allowing each wash to dry completely before adding the next, just like I did when I painted the three primaries separately. This will show how the colour builds up strength when applied in layers. Now that everything is completely dry, let's take a look at the results and compare them. In the glazed square, where each of the primary colours were layered one at a time, you can still see the luminosity of the individual pigment shining through. The colours seem to glow from within, and you can pick out subtle shifts where the yellow, red and blue overlap. In contrast, the bottom square, where the three primaries were pre-mixed together, this looks more muted and flat. It's a pleasant, gentle, neutral colour, but it doesn't have that same inner light or glow. This simple exercise really shows how glazing can create vibrancy even within the same pigments, simply by layering transparently rather than mixing together on the palette. So that's the glazing experiment complete. A simple but revealing way to see how transparent pigments bring light and life to your watercolours when they're layered rather than mixed together on the palette. The camera unfortunately can't quite capture the lovely glow on the paper, so I really encourage you to try this for yourself and notice the difference between your glazed and mixed areas. The effect is really quite magical. There's a sparkle to it. You might also enjoy experimenting with other transparent colours and record your results in a sketchbook. You can build up your own colour library that way. If you haven't already seen my review of Jeanne Dobie's Making Colours Sing, that's the book this exercise is based on, do take a look. It's well worth it. I've put a link in the description below to the video, and I've also pinned it in the comment. And if you've tried this glazing exercise, I'd love to hear how you got on and what you think, so please let me know in the comments. I do reply to everyone. So I'm going to make another video based on this book because I've been so impressed with it and I've learnt so much from it. It will be based on an exercise in chapter 3, Mixing Powerful Colour, where Jeanne explains how you can mix colour with the greatest impact. And before I go, I'm sorry about all the background tinker noises, but I would never get any videos produced if I kept doing retakes all the time. So I hope you don't mind. So I better crack on now. I've got several books to review based on requests from my lovely subscribers. So until next time, happy painting.